Hi, everybody. Hey, this is Ken Renner, real estate broker here, investment specialist in the Austin, Texas area, serve all of Central Texas. And I'm connecting with our agents across the nation to talk about different markets and different areas because it's so different. Even in one little city or one big city, there's a lot of difference. It's just like the country. There's a lot of difference in prices, a lot of difference between equity markets and cash flow markets. And that if anybody tries to tell you that it's not that it's all the same as opposed to it's very localized. It's very localized. And so I got Tyson Lewis here out of New York City, particularly Brooklyn, New York, Brooklyn and New York. Services those markets. He's an expert in the area, highly acclaimed. He's got lots of awards and been in what New York for like over 25 years, the New York area.
About 25, 26 years. Yeah.
Okay, so you're an old timer. You've seen the ups and the downs, and you've seen you've been through the Holocaust of 2007, 2009, 2009.
I started my career in 2008 and people thought I was crazy for starting up at that time, but I figured if I can learn to do it now, I can do it in any
Exactly.
market. Yeah.
About 90% of the agents that are in the business right now didn't go through that. So it's pretty interesting. And and those that went through it, of course, you getting into the business, you kind of you cut your teeth on it. You had to hustle. And that hustle
Right.
carries through. Unfortunately, our cohorts, especially the younger realtors on our teams, and hadn't gone through something that where you're like going, where you really have to work, you really have to bang down the doors. I mean, I remember in California when I started my business in the um, early 80s, mid 80s. I was in the mortgage company. I'm telling you, if you weren't on there at their dining room table that night when you got the call, somebody else was going to get the deal. I come out to Texas and it's like we go to work at 9:30 and we get off at 3 maybe, and they're off at the lake and or down on the just having a good time, and it was like very laid back. And so when I brought that work mentality from a California work mentality to Texas, I pretty much excelled. And so I would encourage like younger people on your team to realize that you got to really in this real estate market, you in any market, competitive competition steep. Only 50% of the realtors didn't sell a house last year or one house stats.
That's right. I heard that. That was shocking.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of I kind of am a little bit sad about that because it is my industry, and I see that people are struggling. They've got car payments, they've got kids in private school and things like that, and the market just took a big turn. So tell me what's been going on in your market. It sounds like it's pretty robust right now.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say that there's never really a bad market in New York City. There are just degrees of good ones, but
That's
but for
good.
sure we have slow periods like everybody else. 2024, we depending on what property types we're talking about,
Right.
2024 was a rough market for a lot of people, especially at the lower price points. Those people tend to be heavily affected by interest rate fluctuations
Right.
and whatever your politics are. I don't want to talk about that, but elections are definitely a distraction
Right.
for business, and so we definitely felt that here. In the last quarter of 2024, it really felt like buyers were exhausted. My team works with a lot of buyers. We're pretty evenly split between buyers and sellers
Good.
usually, and we were just, buyers were exhausted. They wanted the holidays to come and just like reset, and because of that, a lot of sellers who were planning to list their properties uh, decided to hold off for another year because there was too much uncertainty. And I don't, that makes sense to me, but that's what we experienced last year. But since the new year, I mean, we've come out of the gates like gangbusters. It's been every agent in town is like suddenly like running around with like a chicken with their head cut off, and
That's good. Well,
buyers
not
coming out of
good.
the woodwork, and we're seeing a lot of new inventory every week. We're seeing a ton of new inventory, so it's pretty encouraging. I'm excited about what the spring's going to look like.
So we had pent up demand and we had pent up sellers. And so
Right.
that's like kind of it's all of a sudden, like you said, the gates started opening up. I don't know about you, but our business in October, about mid-September to October, when the election was the focus of everybody's interest, everything kind of stopped around here. It was like everybody held their breath. But I'll tell you, right after the election, it was like, okay, which good or bad, whoever turned it, the bottom line is, okay, we're back to business. We don't have to worry about that anymore. And so in November, actually sold 12 homes to investors, mostly from out of state. And they capitalized on some pretty good deals down in the low 200s here. So that's like unheard of. What's the lowest price that you have right there for a condo in Brooklyn?
It's so funny because I got a call the other day from someone who saw something for $250,000 in my neighborhood in Park Slope, Brooklyn, and they were like, "Oh, this is in my budget," and I had to tell them, "I'm sorry, that's not an apartment, that's a parking space."
Parties.
No joke.
Oh, wow.
Parking space for 250. Brooklyn, New York City is really big. Brooklyn itself would be the fourth biggest city in the United States if it was its own city. And
Wow.
we sell in Brooklyn and Manhattan, and I have two agents on my team in Queens. So there's a wide range.
Right.
But in the places where I tend to work,
Yeah.
you might get some one bedroom co-ops. I know you guys don't have a lot of co-ops down where you are, but
Right.
it's a property type that's prevalent here in the city.
Right.
In the fours. I
Okay.
think some of my team sold one out in East New York. We're seeing 150, 250, but in my marketplace, they usually tend to be um, 800, 900 and up. My average price last year was probably around a million six.
Is
So
it mostly condos and townhomes and co-ops, or is it what's single family start at in your particular market where you actually work?
there aren't a ton of single families right where I work. There is a neighborhood nearby that has a lot of them. And those are, I mean, if they're in good condition, we're breaking the 3 million mark.
Nice.
If they're in
What's that get you? How much square footage and bedroom count and
Well, in that particular neighborhood, it's unique to Brooklyn. It has a lot of detached, like Victorian homes,
yeah,
gorgeous properties.
right,
So it kind of feels like you're in the suburbs, even though you're in the middle of the city.
right.
And those can be 4 to 6 thousand square feet. They're massive, they're like mansions.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But my market is the houses in our market. When we talk about houses, are mainly attached to town, like brownstone townhouses
Right, right.
or wood frame townhouses, and those can be 3 to 4 thousand square feet.
Hmm.
And if they're
Good
configured as a
size.
single family, they can sell for 3 to 4 million, sometimes up to five if they're done nicely.
When were they usually built? I mean, I know it's all over the place, but are you still dealing with homes that are, I mean, the properties are built in the early 1900s and the
Late
1950s,
1800s, early 1900s.
1800s? Okay.
Like, yeah, I mean, we see some like, yeah, 1899. Sometimes we see 1899, which is code for it was built before they started recording these things. But yeah, I mean, these are old homes. Those are so much fun to sell. They all have their own unique character, and uh, it. A lot of these are in a historic district. We here they call them landmarked properties,
Right, yeah, sure.
and if they're landmarked, it's nice because they can be renovated inside, but you can't change the exterior,
Can't
so
tear it
they're
down.
protected, and
That's
which
nice
is
for
a
we don't have that here, right? So that's really we do have, we do have the historical homes, but nothing like in the 1800s really. So yeah, so tell me, you just told me about experience that we talked about the rental market and because I'm an investor specialist and I know you work with a few investors on your way, but you also deal with landlords. They're maybe getting a little bit tired of some of the rules and regulations and the restrictions that some of the each area is different and across the nation and like we're a landlord friendly state and California and I guess you've educated me that New York is a pretty tough place to be a landlord. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the cities always come down pretty hard on the side of tenants, pretty strict tenants' rights guidelines.
Yeah.
And then they became even stricter right after COVID. They passed a bunch of new guidelines. It's not, I mean, it, some of these are common sense guidelines. You want people to have a certain amount of notice if the landlord's not intending to renew the lease. Um, we have a lot of rent stabilization here where it controls like how much a landlord can actually increase the rent year
Ooh,
to year.
okay. Rent
But that's
control.
but that's something you know going into it. So you wouldn't only buy into that property if you knew that,
If you knew
knew how
that.
to work that.
What was
But
usually the maximum rent increases that they would allow on something like that? 5%
yeah.
or
Um, I don't do a lot of those, so I wouldn't know
okay.
exactly, but I think it's less than 5%. um, but yeah, in general, I mean, the broad message is that it's very hard to evict a tenant here.
Hmm.
So if they're not paying their rent, if if it's a problem tenant, it's very hard to evict them. It can take months and months.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a landlord that was going through court proceedings for like 5 months because this young lady just decided to stop paying rent, and she was essentially squatting in the apartment. You
Oh
know,
yeah, there's all kinds of stories. Yeah, on the West Coast in California, they have rent control. They have rent. You have to pay them if they pay them if they are have to move. They have to you have to pay them like 6 months rent.
yeah, I
It's
saw that. That's crazy.
it's incredible. It's and so
How can that
apparently
even?
taking the property rights away from the landlords. And I think there's going to be, I know in California, but I know there's probably in New York and other areas, there's going to be an exodus when there's a life change. Like I'm sure there's people that inherited a property that they really, they don't want to live there, but they don't want to become a landlord. Maybe it's time to move to brighter pastures or things like that. And so, that's kind of as the whole generation changes, there's a lot of don't wanters out there, and there's also probably a lot of tired landlords that are getting kind of tired of the whole restrictions.
Yeah, a
So,
lot of my clients are my landlord clients are getting a little bit weary. I try to do because the guidelines seem to tighten up every couple of years here. I try to do a regular update to all of them, like, hey, in case you weren't paying attention, these are the new guidelines. So, let's before the next lease expires, let's think about what our plan is so that we can, whether you want to continue doing this or want to think about selling. A lot of my landlord clients didn't buy with the intention with the intention of renting out the property. They might
right,
have lived in it for a bit and decided to move or up, get more space or move out of the city, but
right,
they didn't want to sell it because it continues to go up in value. That's the flip side of this is even if you're
yeah,
not making a lot of money on rent here in the city, what some people are, the trajectory of values is steadily up. So a lot of my landlords are not like professional landlords, but they're just people who have held on to property and were renting it out. And it's a kind of a balance between that rental income and the
right.
property going up in value.
Well, and that's what we
So
call an equity market as opposed to a cash flow market. And really, most all markets both have both cash flow market and equity markets, but especially in your area, it's mostly an equity play. In our city here in Austin and the areas around, we have our equity markets downtown and all that kind of stuff. But out in the suburbs is where we invest because we've got cash flow and appreciation. So tell me, we talked about the story about the guy that bought the condo, and then he wanted to sell it, and then give me that kind of the story about that. And then you've got all these potential applications with one day of lease potential leasing. Tell me what those
yeah.
numbers look like and what was his story.
Um, this is a sales listing that I have right now. It's a condo. It's a one-bedroom condo on the top floor of an elevator building. It's really close to my home, which is nice that I could walk
Yeah.
to it.
Good.
Um, but and he purchased it before I had met him, probably 10 years ago. I think he bought it. I think he did a 1031 exchange and bought that property partially because he thought he might use it himself, and then partially because he just knew it was a good deal and he could rent it out. The rental market in this particular neighborhood, which is called Greenwood Heights, it's right next to Park Slope. It's an affluent area and easily rentable and decent commute time to Manhattan, which usually makes properties more rentable. And so he bought it, I think, in the mid fives, maybe like 549,
Mhm.
something like that. And uh, he hired me to start renting it maybe 8 years ago, and I've been renting it pretty consistently. He's been getting about $3,200 a month in rent
Okay, it's not bad.
every time around. And I had just put it up for rent about a week and a half ago at 3250,
Right?
and I got somewhere in the vicinity of 35, 40
Wow.
inquiries on the first day.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
which also led me to believe I could have probably priced it a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But here in New York, it's not unusual to have bidding wars on rentals. Like I've had rentals go way
Wow.
over asking, so it
Wow.
happens. Uh, um, but then something happened in his life, and he decided let's just sell it. So he listed it for $699,000 and took the rental listing down, and we already have an offer close to asking, and um,
Nice.
probably more coming. So I'm
Is
I'm
he
guessing we
going
might.
to exchange it again, or is he going to?
We are talking about that. He
Okay,
he might.
perfect conversation.
He might, and I might be calling you because he already owns a property in Austin and he likes Austin, so we
Oh,
might be
great.
talking.
We'll get him some barbecue when he gets out here. So
Yeah,
unless
but
he's vegan, we got lots of vegan stuff too. So
yeah. So I don't. We just this all happened very quickly, and we have a lot of 1031 buyers here just because the property values do escalate so quickly,
right,
and
that's
so
good.
it's a
So
conversation we've had quite a bit.
great to have that conversation. And so yeah, what we did, a lot of people 1031ing from the coast into our area. Usually they sell one and get anywhere between seven and 10 houses. Or between 5 and 10 properties. So Fiona Ferry, which is Tom Ferry's stepmom, and she bought and did a 1031 from California out to our area, sold a beat up old duplex in Costa Mesa for a million two, and she bought 5 houses from me out here in the San Antonio area. Mr. Bill is another client out of San Jose. He sold his little 3 bedroom, 1 bath house in San Mateo for 1.4, which is actually low now. It's gone up from there because equity market. But he turned that. He's getting about 3,200 a month rent, and he bought 10 houses from me, brand new here, and his rent went to 13,500 gross. So that's what I do with these 1031s. And then nice thing about having a lot of different properties is that you can choose. Maybe I just want to move this one to sell this one down the road, or maybe I want to 1031 this one, but not the other ones, as opposed to maybe an apartment building where they're all together, they're all under one deed. So one of the things that Fiona Ferry told me when I was helping her with that, she says, "You got first of all introduced me to Tom, but also said that Kenny, you're a musician. You're a musician. I see your videos. Your sister sends me the videos. That's her broker is my sister, and she goes, you have to incorporate music into your marketing." And I said, they're kind of separate. They're kind of different, the whole thing is like, and she goes, no, they're not. It's something that's unique to you, and it's entertaining, and it separates you from the crowd. And so we're starting to talk with you out at Elite Retreat and decided we found out we were kindred spirits in the music. Tell me about your music career and what were you doing? You're a piano player professionally and toured and all kinds of stuff. Tell me what a little bit of background there.
Yeah, I I moved to the city. I was going to in the late 90s, and I was going to go to law school, and I worked at a couple law firms to see if I liked it, and got married. And right as I was about to go, I got accepted at Fordham Law School, great school, and I decided I'm not doing this, and I started a rock band. My wife was less than enthusiastic about that. Let me just say, uh, uh, fair enough. But I did that, and then just started playing music in and around New York City, and then I end up uh, becoming the keyboard player for a more notable band that they called Hopewell. Not famous or anything, but well known in certain circles. And we toured for about a decade across the United States and some in Europe.
Nice.
And then I would also fill in keys for a bunch of other people. I mean, we're just like in the music scene, so
Right. Yeah. He did
when they
studio work
needed a
too.
sub, yeah, I did a lot of studio work, and I found a nice niche for myself. I'm not like classically trained. I'm not one of these amazing jazz guys,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm also good enough that I found a little niche for myself where I got a lot of work playing in the city,
That's fun.
and I got on some really cool stages even with some of my heroes where I never thought that would ever happen to me. So it's something that I love. But as I got older, touring got old, and I decided
Yeah.
I'd do something easier and become a real estate agent because I could set my own hours and do whatever I wanted and tour whenever I wanted. So
There you go. And so you still go out, do a lot of like solo stuff and piano stuff. That what do you go like piano bars or
well,
just
I play in a country band.
okay?
And I play out like once a month in Brooklyn, and I play in two Grateful Dead cover bands.
Oh, fun. Okay.
That's really fun. There's like a big scene here, and that's really fun. And I'll just fill in when people ask me. Um, it's nice for me because I have a good job that pays well, so I don't really need the money, and so I
Yeah.
can say no to things, and I can pick and choose what I want to do, and it's just something that brings me a lot of joy,
Yep.
and it's my release. It's like one of the few times when I'm not thinking about work is when I'm playing
Yep.
music. So going back to what you were saying about how she wanted you to incorporate your music in your business or in your
Yeah.
marketing. I resisted that, and I'm
Yeah.
still sort of resisting it because I always saw them as two separate things. I was
Yep.
always like, this is my release. This is how I relax.
Yeah.
I don't want to incorporate it. But the truth is that it's a really important part of me. And if this business is built on trust and relationships
Right.
and you want your clients to trust you, they should know who you are. And
Yeah, authenticity. We were talking about that. So yeah, and that it's same with me. For some reason, when I get done after a grueling gig, I feel energized. I don't feel like it's not work to me, and I never want it to be work because I mean that's what you're talking about before. It was work for you, and kind of probably took some of the joy out of it. So
it started to, yeah.
yeah, but yeah, so we have Kindred now. My daughter's a professional musician too, and we actually I hire her to do some of our when we do an open house to do some acoustic stuff and things like that. So it's good to see that we've got the musicians tied in with the real estate industry. And I have one thing to share with you real quick. Hanging on my wall. I know you're not a guitar player, but this is a 1953 Martin 0018 guitar.
Wow.
Uh,
Beautiful.
and it was my grandfather's guitar.
Oh,
So
that's gorgeous.
I got it inherited, and it's 10 years older than me, so I guess that would put it at 70 some years old. And so great to talk to another musician and somebody who's really crushing it out in the New York area. If you have clients or if you are thinking about relocating to the New York, Brooklyn area, or even Connecticut, didn't talk about that you also serve the Connecticut, right?
Yep. Yep.
And people relocating out of these higher prices in Manhattan, and moving somewhere that's a lot cheaper. So if you're ever going to the New York area, hook up with Tyson, and Tyson, go ahead and give us your contact information.
Sure. I'm a broker with Compass. My email is tyson.lewis at compass.com,
Okay.
Tyson.lewis at compass.com. And my phone number, if you like that, is 917-716-7361.
Cool. And if you have any of your clients that are thinking about going to more of a cash flow market, I've got a bunch of different ones. I'm networking with some of the best areas and developers in the nation, including right here in Central Texas. My name is Ken Renner, Ken with two N's, Renner with two N's, and it's Ken, Kenn at buyaustin.com. And my number is 512-423-5626. Well, Tyson, back to the grind, back to the traffic, and I'm glad that we had this conversation and be able to connect with you and hopefully connect with some of the people out there that are looking to relocate or reinvest in different areas. Thanks a lot,
Yeah,
Tyson.
this has been great. A lot of fun. Thank you.
All right, talk to you soon. See you, bro.